Another edition of Riding Home here, and there's been a lot of transition. We'll call it that, Matt. And that's what happens when you win national championships and just have successful seasons. But a lot of transition on the coaching side of things. Let's talk about what that means for Georgia going into 22. The biggest one leaving Dan Lanning. Todd Monken didn't leave. And that's kind of an interesting thing because I thought it was possible that he could go to the NFL. But Dan, let's start with Dan Lanning. He's gone, and now you have Will Muschamp and Glenn Schumann taking over at defensive coordinator.
Yeah, I mean, he was going to leave at some point, right? I mean, he's been at Georgia for
Right.
a long time, and he's deserved it to help build one of the best defenses in college football history. He's an excellent recruiter, and there's a reason Kirby Smart brought him in the first place. He knew that Dan Lanning was a rising star, and he got everything out of Dan Lanning that he could have asked for, and I think it was a great hire by Oregon. So as tough as that is to see him leave because he did such a good job, Glenn Schumann's one of the best assistants and defensive minds in all of college football. And
Yeah.
he's now a co defensive coordinator with Will Muschamp, who's been doing this a long, long time. They both have been with Kirby Smart for a long time. Obviously, Glenn Schumann was with him at Alabama, and Will Muschamp is his best buddy, right? So there's a lot of continuity there, especially on the defensive side of the ball. So linebacking core and defensive staff overall, I think they're going to be just fine, especially Trey Scott running the defensive line. He's done an excellent job just turning guys out left and right. Saw new cornerbacks coach Fran Brown. He's another guy who can recruit. I don't know if he can develop yet, but I mean, is he that much worse or better than Jamal Adai, who was there, just for a quick stop in Athens? I'm not so sure. But at the end of the day, Kirby's going to bring in guys who can bring in players and recruit. And I think it's another solid recruiting staff there, especially on the defensive side of the ball.
Well, let's start where I think this could impact Georgia the most in a quick way, which is actually on the offensive side of the ball. You go from Cortez Hankton to BMAC to Brian McClendon, and Brian has worked with Kirby in the past. Well, he was a player at Georgia. Kirby was there in '05. He was, I think, the offensive coordinator or something significant at South Carolina when Will Muschamp was there. He just left Oregon to go to somewhere else, and then he wound up at Georgia.
Miami, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And of course, Brian was. I'm trying to think if Brian was with Coach Rick down there at Miami or not. I think he
I,
was,
these
or
guys
was he at Carolina
change
the
it
whole
because
time? Well,
I think it was.
anyway,
Yeah.
go to Hank from Hankton to BMAC. Now, this is one that I think we should, this is one that kind of matters more because as good as the receivers have been, the recruiting of the receivers I think could be better. I'll leave it to you there. Your comments.
I mean, Brian knows how to recruit. We know that. And he brought
Yeah.
in, when he was at coaching the running backs, brought in Nick and Sony. But
Right.
the guy loves Georgia, right? I know he's bounced around, but it's a little different. I think these coaches care a little bit more when they're coaching at the place where they played at. And I think Will Muschamp feels the same way. Obviously, Kirby, Mike Bobo is back in town, and so is Brian McClendon. So they all know him. They know what he can do on the recruiting
But
trail. He could,
what can he do on the retreat? What are we talking about here? I mean, if Brian brought in Todd, Nick,
yeah.
Keith, Isaiah, I mean, that's a heck of a run of running backs.
Yeah. He
Nick,
knows what he's
Sony,
yeah. He knows what he's doing. He knows what to tell a parent when he goes in and eats dinner with them at their home. He knows how to close, and he gets his guys. Todd Hartley gets his guys. Glenn Schumann gets his guys, and Brian McClendon, no matter where he's been at, uh, recruits and he gets his guys and he develops them too. I mean, it was a slam dunk home run hire, and I think it's one of the only, he's one of the only guys who could be better than Cortez Hankton. I think Georgia got stronger there at the receivers coach. So again, he's a Georgia guy, knows what he's doing. Home run hire, and I think he's going to have an immediate impact, especially on the recruiting trail. He's out looking for his guys right now, and he's still evaluating. But at the end of the day, he's going to bring in a top-notch class for his group.
you went from Dan Lanning to Uzo Duribe, coming from Colorado, a guy that's younger than 30 years old. Uzo Duribe has been around. I mean, he was at Colorado, coached at TCU, SMU, Kansas. He's been in the Midwest. What is that? Is that the Midwest? That's not the Midwest. That's the Heartland. I don't know what it's called. that's stretched from Texas,
Yeah,
Mexico to Kansas. I guess it's most people just call it Texas, but
yeah.
um, you're getting younger there. There's a lot of discussion, and we don't know a lot about him, but there's a lot of discussion of him being an up and coming person. It sounds like you're describing Georgia's current defensive line coach before anybody knew a lot about him, which is Trey Scott. I mean, if you're getting something similar to that, which is me projecting, then it'd be unbelievable. But your thoughts on Uzo Duribe?
He's another guy who can recruit. Kirby's bringing in younger and younger assistants because they can
Yeah.
relate to these kids. We don't know if this kid or this man under 30 years old can develop. We don't know that. We think he has a chance to develop players, but he can recruit. He's young. I hear from recruits all the time, hey, I can connect with this guy. He's not 40 years old, been doing this for 20 plus years. It's easy to have a relationship with him because he's maybe 10, 12 years older than I am. So Kirby brings them. I mean, Dan Lanning was really young when he got to Georgia. Obviously, Glenn Schumann is, I think, my age, barely in his 30s. He's been at Georgia for a while. So we're seeing a lot of these young assistants come through, connect, recruit, and then if they can develop, I mean, they're just going to continue to climb that coaching ladder. So, and I think he's one of those guys who has the opportunity to do that.
You've gone from a Dye to Brown. You were talking about Brown earlier, the new defensive backs coach at Georgia.
Yeah, came from. He's got some ties from up in New Jersey,
Yeah.
Pennsylvania area. He's another guy who all about speed. He recruits guys who can run. One of Baylor's top prospects in the NFL draft was recruited by him wherever he was. I forgot where he was before, Rutgers, I believe. But he's
Yeah.
kind of
Temple, Rutgers. Yeah.
yeah, he's still a question mark, but I mean, Kirby went and got him for a reason, right? This is a big time job coaching at the University of Georgia with the machine they're building right now, and there's a reason he got the job. So you can't doubt Kirby when it comes to coaching hires because he knows what he can do, and I think we're going to see how well he can develop some of these talented younger defensive backs on the roster.
So Matt Luke left, and Stacy Searles comes back in. I don't know if you saw this or not, but I talked with Clint Bowling last week. Clint played for Stacy and was recruited by him right at the end. And obviously, Clint went on to start his freshman year and then went on to be a 8-year player in the NFL, whatever
Yeah.
it was, and is a big believer in Stacy. And I talked with a couple of other offensive linemen just in texting, and they felt like it was a really good hire. I think the question is, can he recruit at the level Kirby wants? And that's the question. The answer is, didn't he just get a 5-star kid at Carolina?
Yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah.
go
Now
ahead.
they weren't all that great on the offensive line collectively last year, but
Right.
he's a guy with experience. He's a veteran coach. He's been around the league. He's got SEC ties.
Yeah, for
It was a
sure.
safe hire. It was not a flashy hire, but I don't think he can recruit the same way Sam Pittman and even Matt Luke did. I mean, you're got to fill some big shoes when those two guys, who one is a current head coach and Matt Luke obviously was a head coach at the SEC level at Ole Miss. So
Yeah.
big shoes to fill, but this is a guy who has had this job before, and he's been coaching offensive line for a long, long time. He's a player's coach, like you said. Guys love playing for him. And at the end of the day, the scheme is going to come down to what Todd Monken and Kirby want to do anyway. So as long as this guy can just continue to develop, the 4 and 5-star talent that he has in front of him, I think he'll be fine. North Carolina doesn't have
The
guys that
players.
Georgia has right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll see how it goes, but I think offensive line is going to be the strength of this team, especially on offense.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, when you look at this group, Jamari is gone, Justin Schaefer's gone, but you return basically everybody else. Truss, McClendon, Ratledge, Jones. Those guys are all going to have the capability to start. Obviously, Van Pran's a starter. You got Mims in there. Morris, Fairchild. Those 3 guys I just mentioned were top 100 prospects. Um, Matt Luke did a really good job recruiting, Matt, and Mims, Morris, and Fairchild are great examples of that. It, I think for Stacy, he's getting probably, oh man, I don't know if I'm going to say this right. He's probably getting the best overall group, although maybe the quarterbacks are the best overall group. Which do you think is the best overall group?
I would say the offensive line, because
Yeah,
talent-wise, it could be
or the
quarterback, but
tight ends.
or the tight ends.
Tight
I think you're
ends.
right there.
Tight ends.
Yeah, quarterback, you obviously know who the starter is, but we still haven't seen what Brock can do or Carson can do. The talent is there. We know what they were coming out of high school, but we don't know what they can do at this level yet. But I think the offensive line should be really strong, especially considering what Broderick Jones, how well he played towards the end of the year. And you have so many talented guys still sitting on the bench, too. So um, it should
Roger,
be an outstanding group.
the thing about it is, and you get the capability, Matt, now of sticking a guy who got hurt on the second play of the year against Clemson and Taylor Ratledge. You get the opportunity to set your line, with the exception essentially of your left tackle. I'll go through this real quick. Warren is going to play. Warren McClendon will play right tackle. Tate Ratledge right guard. Van Pran at center. Your left guard should be either Jones. Okay, we don't know who. The left side is not as obvious, but the starters are there. The question is, are you going to start uh, Broderick Jones at left tackle or left guard? Or are you going to start Mims at left tackle or left guard? Or are you going to start Truss at left tackle or left guard? So you've got three guys for two spots. Can someone push someone else out? Who's going to be the backup center too? I think matters to some degree. And then a guy that you've always been real high on, Fairchild, can he make a push for interior play? Stacy's got a lot to work with, and it's not an insignificant thing when your offensive line is really good, and right now they're really good. But um, you know, Stacy was the head coach. It was the offensive line coach for Nick Saban when he won the national championship at LSU. And to me, if you're talking about who do you want as an offensive line coach, anyone that's going to be the offensive line coach for Nick is probably qualified to be the offensive
Yeah.
line coach for your program, whoever that may be.
Yeah, Nick Saban and Kirby Smart are not guys. It's not easy to work for them, right? You've got to put in the
No,
hours. You've got to recruit. You have to work your butt off.
no,
And
yeah.
Stacy's a guy who can do that. So he knows what's expected of him. He knows the standard at Georgia and what it means to coach for guys like Nick Saban and Kirby Smart. He gets it, and he has a lot of talent in front of him. It was a very attractive job. I'm sure he jumped at it immediately. Said, "Oh, I can coach up all these 4 and 5 stars and
Yeah.
a group that should be one of the best in the country again. Yeah, sign me up." So he's got, again, like we said, he's got experience. He knows what he's doing. Not the flashiest hire, but a safe hire, I would say.
Well, and not a bad one.
Yeah.
I don't think, and we'll see. I failed to mention DAWGSTRUCTION, which is kind of an amazing thing. Make sure you're picking this up. The link is down below. And Matt, I think that when you look at this coaching staff as it is, can they repeat? Georgia's the only one that can repeat this year, right? I
Yeah.
mean, no one else can repeat. I don't think that's necessarily the case that they will, but it's not out of the question that we'll see more trophy hoisting in the future, because when you build staffs like this, the point is to keep the ball rolling. It's going to be challenging for Georgia coming into 22. Alabama is the favorite, as we've discussed a lot. They're not a massive favorite, but they are favored. Can this staff get them where they want to go? Because there may be turnover after this season, but this looks like a staff that just got put together for maybe the next year or two.
Yeah, and I want your thoughts on big dog post guy Mike Bobo and what
Oh,
he brings to the table. And I haven't even mentioned him yet, but I mean, what do you think he brings to this
big
offense? And I mean, Todd
big
Monken
dog
is the
post guy.
OC, but Mike knows what he's doing. He's a play caller, and he's going to have some type of input in this offense, right?
First of all, everyone's a big dog post fan.
Of
Okay.
course, of course, yeah.
Yes, we make no enemies ever. Well, I mean, I think the person that benefits the most from Mike Bobo being around is Gunnar Stockton. That would be what my immediate reaction would be, because of the time that he will get to spend helping develop him, and he's the youngest quarterback, and he's from an area that Mike knows well at Raven. But Vandergriff, Carson Beck, Stetson, they will all benefit from Mike being there. He's one of the best quarterback developers out there. Aaron Murray, David Green, DJ Shockley, Matthew Stafford. So he's had some really good players at quarterback. He's been a very good offensive coordinator. But it's Todd's show, and I'm I'm I think for Mike to be able to go to Striplings, not paid, not a paid advertisement. They should be a sponsor of ours, but they're not.
Yeah.
For him to be able to go to Striplings, get some brisket or whatever and make it, and not have to worry about every single thing that's going on. That's good for him, his health. Of course, his son could be. I mean, will be probably an interior lineman. People think his son is an extremely bright center prospect. We'll see how that goes. You got to be smart to play center. You just do.
Yeah.
You think about guys like Fernando Velasco, Ben Jones, David Andrews, guys that have been through here. They are smart people, and we'll see what happens with Drew Bobo. But I think Mike being around, I was gonna say maybe it will chill Kirby out. I have no expectation of that. I just know that we're all going to go to Flanagan's one of these Friday nights and get into trouble with the lucky triplets.
I mean, it's just a matter of time at this point. I mean, the gang's back
God.
together. It has to, make Kirby feel a little better to have some of his buddies back. I mean, a positive Kirby. I mean, this is probably the happiest he's ever been coming off a national championship that he helped coach. He's got his buddy Will on the staff working with him defensively. He's bringing Mike back.
Right.
They're bringing back the old mid-90s days around there. But
in all seriousness, for Kirby, he's got young children. It's important to stay balanced in a way that you can stay positive. I think that you have former head coaches in Todd Monken, Will, Mike. That's a good. I might be leaving somebody else out. Mike Cavan was a head coach at SMU. So you've got a good basis of groups of guys that you can lean on and so forth. But hey, as I talked about yesterday in one of my videos, the trajectory of this thing shouldn't stop. It should keep going higher. Multiple national championships are what I expect. And I'm not saying that naively. Kirby's built it to where these type of moments shouldn't be, I mean, they should happen. And this should not be an Oklahoma situation where you win it once and then, Oklahoma's going on 20 years of not winning a national championship, Matt. I don't know if we're going to say that about Georgia or not, but the only way to keep doing it is to keep doing it. They've got to keep pressuring to win.
I think they have everything at their disposal to do it. So it's not crazy to say that at all.
That's the difference right now between 17 and 22. 5 years later, what's the difference? Everything's in place, including the imagination of Georgia fans. I mean, I told my wife when I sent her down there to Tampa to watch Clemson play Alabama after they won, I said, it's going to be hard to beat this moment. For Georgia, it's going to be hard to beat the moment that they just had, because not only did they win the national championship, they did it against Alabama, a team they had lost to a month before, a team that somebody on here picked to win that game, right? Cowards.
Yeah.
And
I don't hear about that every day at all, by the way.
Do you really? People give you grief about that?
All the time. I get it.
That's so annoying. Because you meant it. You meant it, right? You weren't just saying that. You meant, hey, I think they're going to lose this game.
I thought Jameson Williams was going to play all 4 quarters. Also, I think kind of the pick maybe goes out the window once he got hurt. Just 1 quarter in. But
you mean your choice? Had you known that, you would have picked Georgia.
Yeah.
See, I would have stuck with Georgia even during, if the guy had played for 4 quarters. Georgia played like shit the first quarter, the first 20 minutes, right? I mean, they did not play well, and then they settled down and figured it out. They were the better team.
Yeah.
But yeah, you get grief about that. I'm sorry, man. But it's what it is.
Fine. Yeah.
No one ever remembers when you pick Georgia.
Right.
I think I picked Georgia,
which we did all year.
Yeah, I don't think I picked Georgia to lose. I don't think I picked Georgia to lose since the Alabama game in 20 and the LSU game in 19. And in that time, they've lost 2 other games, which is Alabama and SEC championship and Florida down there. But I knew something was wrong before the Florida game. I still picked them, which was kind of stupid, to be honest, looking back on it. That was a bad pick.
Yeah. But
I don't know.
It's going to be hard to pick against them at any point in the regular season next year unless something crazy happens.
I don't see myself picking against them, but we're 6 months from when they play. I'm not picking them. I'm not picking Oregon to beat them.
No.
Okay. I don't care what happens between now. I don't care if they're starting. I don't care if Gunnar Stockton's starting. I'm still picking Georgia to win that game, because there's the sum of the parts is going to be too much to me for Oregon to overcome. But as we go on, is Tennessee going to be better than we think? Are the Gators? Is Auburn going to get it together? Georgia can lose in 22, I'm not sure I see a lot of options for them to lose. In a way, they're in Deshaun Watson's Clemson time at Clemson, which there's just not a lot of games they can lose. You know,
Right. Right.
just not a lot of games they can lose. All right, hey, pick up DAWGSTRUCTION. Matt's not talking anymore. I brought up a bad feeling. I've gotten into his. I've gotten into his feelings. I've gotten into his feelings again. I'm sorry, Matt.
No,
All
I
right.
just need more coffee. Here we go.
All right, we're checking out. See you on the website.